Hello and welcome to Social Perspectives. I am J. Gentile Everett. We're delighted that you have joined us for tonight's show. We will be discussing, in the arena of politics, does our faith have a presence? Or is it just something that we say rhetorically and really has no value? Is it just shrewd for politicians to license their faith and their political positions to coexist as separate and unmistakable dichotomies for the sake of political expediency? Or is it their way of explaining why we have the separation between church and state? In other words, is religion real in our political discourse? Or is it something that we use to simply get votes so that we can get elected to public office? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sometimes God interrupts the normal course of history and gives us leaders whose gifts and insights are used to transform a generation. We have the privilege of presenting such a leader. He is an accomplished jazz musician, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and beloved CM minister of Mill Branch Baptist Church, J.G. Everett Ministries. Our host, Dr. J. Gentile Everett.
What is significant about Christianity in our political discourse? We live in a country where Christianity is one of our greatest religions, and most of our political leaders embrace Christianity. They pontificate and they utter how wonderful faith is to them and how profound faith has sculptured their lives. We've heard all of that. But what about our faith when it comes to political expediency? I submit that many of our politicians talk about their faith because it is a convenience. It helps them get elected. They will go to various Christian churches and they will make speeches about the importance of God, the importance of family. But then I am pained to say many of them, after being elected, seem to neglect their faith and embrace what is politically convenient. What I find most disturbing is how we have many of our Christian organizations and churches will embrace political leaders who chronically show us that they have a sense of morality that would be disdained by God. Many of them over and over again reveal just how amoral they are. And yet some of our religious churches and organizations continue to back them. Even when they engage in utter and ridiculous falsehoods and employ a sense of mendacity, yet they are still backed and embraced by many of our Christian organizations. I humbly pray that our Christian organizations will always see that Christians do not separate their Christian faith from their political positions, because the faith that we have in God is a faith that unifies our being, and it allows us to show our relationship with God in everything that we do. So I say to all of my Christian brothers and sisters, when we think about politics, let us not strip ourselves of our faith, because then we do a disservice to God by allowing ourselves to embrace what God would not. What is it that God calls us to really do? Whether you are a politician, whether you are a minister, God calls us to reflect His standards and to reflect His image in everything that we do. If we embrace God's image, we'll be able to show the world how wonderful and how beautiful God really is. I pray humbly and fervently that we would move to that place where we would call out immorality in our political world, and certainly not hitch our religious faith to that kind of behavior. The Bible teaches, what we do to the least of these, you do unto the Lord. So if your Christian faith is what guides you, let us remember that when we make decisions that will influence the plight of the poor. One of the things I love so much about Christianity, I learned very early that silence is an act of complicity. In other words, if we know wrong exists and wrong is being practiced and we say nothing about it, we are being complicit in that very act. The poor and the underprivileged, we have to remember as well as we make political decisions, because we live in a world where the powerful continue to become powerful, and the poor and the underprivileged continue to be poor. I submit today that if we are going to understand what Christian faith means or should be in our political discourse, we should remember God is watching, and God wants us to be concerned about the poor and the underprivileged. The powerful in our land continues to howl while the feeble lambs continue to cry out. The poor who struggle to have enough money to buy medicine, while the powerful and the rich in the health industry continue to raise prices, thus making sure that the chasm and the schism widens between the rich and the poor. All I am suggesting, when we think about what should be done politically, let us always remember the Bible is the ultimate authority for morality. It is the ultimate authority of how we should treat our fellow man. And let us be guilty of trying to shed the light of God in the dark places of our world. Lastly, I hope and pray that we will come to recognize that America is a place of ideas. It is a place where we're brought together because we believe that we are all equal and we are all one, and we should have equal protection under the law. We will go more deeply into that in our second segment, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I've been feeling like this my last chance on.
What's up, world? It's Rough Guy Rhymes, the leader of the Dream Big lifestyle, and I'm here to tell you to dream big.
Perhaps I am too idealistic. Maybe I think too idealistically. But I just believe to promote a political position that reaches beyond the economic and the social classes to which we are aligned is the way God wants us to go. But if our politics are designed to lift one group at the expense of another, we are actually hearing the cacophony of bigotry and socioeconomic segregation. In this vast country of ours, it's the richest country in all of the world. It is the most opportunistic country that we have. But yet we still have to bow to the powerful. The ones with the money, they make the rules. And all of the rest of us seem to have to follow suit. We become pawns in their hands. I submit to you, the sheep are crying out. The poor and the underprivileged understood that this is a land of freedom. This is a land where we learned from our forefathers that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They're endowed with certain inalienable rights. And among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We were guaranteed equal protection under the law. We were guaranteed that the color of one's skin, nor the size of one's purse, should ever be placed on the scale of justice to determine its outcome. We believed in the highest ideas. That's what makes America such a great country. It's about embracing an idea that we are free and that we have the opportunity to live and to pursue and to be all that we can be. By now, we should not have to worry about certain groups having to march down the street and march to certain places, certain political monuments to make a point. It's already been promised to us. We should not have to march for what has been promised to be enforced. It should be an automatic. But we're still marching. I couldn't help but to think about affirmative action. Affirmative action was an idea that would force the powerful to open doors to the underprivileged and the less served. So affirmative action was going to be this opportunity for that minority who otherwise would not have that opportunity to be hired. Here is the problem. I understand the political necessity for it. I get that. But this is the part that we gloss over or we do not take into account. There is no way in the world you can legislate love. Doesn't matter how many laws are passed, you cannot legislate love. Therefore, even if we have affirmative action, it doesn't mean that companies or people have changed their hearts. It only means that if they're going to do business, they have to change their practices. Affirmative action does not alter stereotypes. It does not change the way a person interprets another person. It only says, I have to do certain things because the law requires it. But it is love that transforms the heart, changes the spirit. And when that happens, people change. I'm just hoping that the day will come when we will realize that all of us have to live on this planet together. We all have to find ways that we can complement each other and lift each other and not speak pejoratively about other ethnicities. Let us not look down on others because they do not look like us or their plight might be different from ours. Let's make sure that in our political world, particularly our politicians, let's embrace all of the people in America and serve them equally and not feel like all you need to do is hold on to a fraction of the American population. When we cut America up, we established regiments, untrained militias, if you will. When we cut America up by color, by money, then we are in fact making regiments in our midst. And we cannot continue to thrive unless we decide that we are going to operate as one. And let everybody be true to the calling of God and employ our faith in every political decision so that in the end, if we should happen to cause a problem with a group or two, at least we can stand and look in the mirror every morning. We can go to our churches or our places of worship and we can feel good to know that we did the best we could with what we had. And our primary responsibility was to please God and His righteousness. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's a lifestyle. It's a culture. More than just a brand. The Dolce.
Welcome back. Lastly, I submit love should not be politicized. Love is not transactional, and love is not a quid pro quo proposition. It does not seek its own. It is not puffed up. Love is kind. It doesn't keep records of egregious acts. It is long-suffering. But political decisions are seeds planted for an inclusive society. Remember that. Seeds planted for an inclusive society. That means political decisions should be decisions that are made that will give impetus to a more inclusive society so that everybody can benefit from that decision. One of the things that we must talk about when we think about love and politics, when we have a political system that inculcates the Republican Party, the Independent Party, the Democratic Party, when all of these parties operate under the theocratic party, the party ruled by God. Whatever our political interests, whichever side of the political coin we exist, we all should operate under the theocratic party, and that is the rule of God. Ultimately, God is what we will have to stand before with all of the decisions that we make in our political discourse. And we're going to have politicians that will decide this or will decide the other. But in the end, we'll all have to stand and give an account for that decision. I only hope and pray that we will come to recognize that we serve a wonderful and awesome God, and He wants us to take Him in our political chambers. He should not just exist in churches and community halls. He should be in the chamber of Congress. So when we stand, we are not just representing a constituency. Congressmen and senators, it's just not about you representing a district. It's about you representing something much larger than your district. Because districts are like everything else, all of that can change. The question is always going to be, what did you do for the least of these? That's the question. Were the hungry fed? Did we attend to the sick? Did we give shelter to those without it? And did we give hope to those in despair? That's what really life is about, lifting others and bringing everybody up so that everybody can come to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what it's all about. We are going to be talking about in the weeks to come how our faith should work in our political discourse. For an example, for those who do not believe in abortion, you believe in pro-life, that's fine. If you're going to believe in pro-life, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that position if that's your political position. But if you're going to believe in pro-life, it's hard for me to understand how then you can believe in cutting food stamps for the poor. What are you saying? We are not going to remove the fetus and take care of it that way. We're going to wait for the child to come to the world, and we will starve the child from that point. That's not Christian either. We have a lot that we have to consider when we make our political judgments. And it's not about any particular party being in power. It is about Each party representing something bigger than themselves. Party of integrity, a party where love abounds, where the true spirit of America is seen each and every day. America is a beautiful place. She has her problems. She still struggles with racial inequalities. But we can overcome that. Things might be better, but we are a long way from being equal. We've heard that America is supposed to pursue that perfection, that nation that is perfect. But we're not there. But each one of us can make it better if we will all understand the wonderful, immortal words of Dr. Benjamin Mays. I'll always remember. He said one time, I only have a minute with 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, I can't refuse it. I didn't seek it, and I didn't choose it. But I must use it. And if I suffer, I will lose it. If I do not give an account of it, I am abusing it. So here I am with this one tiny little minute. But eternity is in it. Good night to all of you. Look forward to seeing you next week. Make sure you listen and see all of those preferred businesses that we have listed on the screen. Support them. Support the work at Mill Branch Baptist Church TV Ministries. I'm J. Gentile Everett. See you another time on Social Perspectives.